Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and I wanted to go ahead and do a real quick should you buy video on the Aegis Eclipse, which was just released. And just so you guys know, like always, we're going to get a lot more information on this ship in the Q&As that are going to be coming probably next week. And that may change some of the opinions that are here, but let's talk a little bit about the ship. First off, the price is $275 if you want to buy this ship, just being able to use credits. If you're willing to pay cash only, then you can get it for $250 in a war bond sale, and it's going to be available through June 2nd. As far as pricing is concerned, they actually did something they haven't done in the past, and that's telling us what they expect this ship to be at full cost when they end up releasing it. And right now, that looks like that number is going to be $350. So basically, you have an opportunity to save a total of $100 if you think you want this ship. Coming with that, you get a unique hull number on the ship, and you get an icy blue and matte black skin, which kind of sounds like the Saber Comet in my mind. As far as loaners are concerned, you actually are going to get a Retaliator in the Persistent Universe, which makes sense, and a Gladiator and Arena Commander. So what this ship is basically been labeled as a signature mitigated strike craft, which is basically a very fancy way of saying this is a stealth bomber. It's designed with border defense in mind, or as a first strike weapon against the Vanduul, primarily focusing on Vanduul capital ships with the goal of striking before being seen. It's also used in some situations to soften strategic targets before larger forces arrive, and that could be large ships, that could be maybe bases on planet side. There's probably a lot of applications for a ship like this in that regard. I still don't really understand the idea of this being a border defense ship. It's unless you want something that's unseen that can deal with the big ships that come through. When I hear border defense, I think more like scouts. So that part doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but I guess when they focus on the capital ships, it makes a little bit more sense, especially when they talk about this ship only really being involved in something like 36 different missions or something like that. So we'll have to see. Now, as far as stealth goes with this ship, it has a few things that are working towards it in that favor. Number one being the engines are actually tucked into the main body of the ship. And really everything about the ship is focused on keeping a very, very small cross-section, specifically from the front. Now, obviously, a ship that's kind of shaped in this delta formation is going to end up having a very large cross-section on the top, but when you're a strike ship, you're going to be showing the enemy your front. And a ship like this has a very, very thin profile, which works out really well. So the engines are tucked in. The weapons are actually stowed away internally until they end up being deployed. That's great news because they're going to put off signature when they're activated. If they're tucked inside the ship, that helps to prevent some of that. They're also not going to be sticking out, causing extra protrusions or cross-section signatures happening. It's got an advanced whole wing kind of formation that allows it to have a couple different flight models. Basically, it has a compact mode where the wings tuck in and it helps to keep the signature down in space, basically being more stealthy. Or if you want to be able to do operations in atmosphere, you go with the extended flight mode where you get the wings that extend and the fins that protrude for better aerodynamics and handling in atmosphere. Overall, the ship is 21 meters long. It's 17,000 kilograms as in regards to mass, and it has a crew size of 1. So a relatively big ship for a crew size of 1, but based on what its purpose is, it makes a lot of sense to just have 1. Now, the weaponry on the ship is interesting. It does have two size 2 Gatling guns, and that's specifically meant to be enough of a deterrent to keep people away from you. I don't see that being much of a deterrent at all, because that is literally all you have in regards to your weaponry, outside of your torpedoes, which we're going to talk about in a sec. Basically, this ship is not going to be a super maneuverable craft. Basically, what you're going to end up having is you've got 2 TR2 engines, and remember, the sizes are going to change at some point, but you can at least extrapolate that based on other ships in the sizing model that we have today. That's not a big set of engines on this craft. It's got 8 TR1 maneuvering thrusters. Again, that's not going to make it a very maneuverable craft. And then it's got 2 retro thrusters at TR1 as well. So you've got a ship that has a big cross-section, and if you're looking at it from the top, it's not very aerodynamic, and it's got 2 pea shooters for weapons. So it's going to have a hard time dealing with fighters. Now, it's not meant to go toe-to-toe, but the idea of them saying that that's going to help to be a deterrent, I'm never going to be deterred against a ship like this because I can get behind it and stay behind it. So, those are going to be things that you need to consider, especially when you start talking about the fact that the ship has 2 small size, size 2 shields on it, and a really small power plant at size 1. But again, that's another thing that goes towards keeping the signature down. Now, I think that power plant size is probably going to change to some extent, but I think it's going to stay relatively small because the power plant is going to be one of the primary things that are causing EM and probably IR signatures that are happening. So, we'll end up needing needing to see. It is going to seriously lack durability, though. It's got light armor that was mentioned and a small power plant, so it's not going to be able to power those two shields that effectively. So you're going to be much better off for all of those reasons I just mentioned, avoiding combat as opposed to actually expecting to come out winning a dogfight. Now, the torpedoes are an interesting part that we need to kind of try and figure out, because they actually go on to mention that these are going to be size 9 torpedoes. The Polaris, to my knowledge, was a size 6 based on what's in that brochure. So you're talking about this having the ability to carry bigger torpedoes, unless the nomenclature has changed again. And we've seen this in discussions with some of the previous, I guess, architecture, where we would see there's small and then like size 1 through 4 within that, and then there's medium and then size 1 through 4 with that, and then there's large and size 1 through 4 with that. So maybe that's what they're talking about with the torpedoes here. They don't look like they're size 10. They don't look bigger than the Polaris, so something is going on there. We'll need to wait and see how much punch these are actually going to pack. Based on the look, they look more like along the lines of something you're going to carry on a Harbinger, not necessarily something that's going to be on a Retaliator or the, Polaris. I think these are going to be smaller, being used more tactically, and I think that's where we're going to end up seeing some of the differentiation between the Retaliator and this. I think the Retaliator is going to be more durable. I think it's going to be able to bring more pain. I think it's got the turrets to be able to be in a fight for an extended period of time, where I think the Eclipse needs to get in, deliver its payload, and get out before it gets into any trouble. And so you're not going to have the same benefit of durability or output of damage. So I think that's what we'll end up seeing as a difference, but the Q&A should answer quite a bit of that, at least in my mind. So the one redeeming factor that this ship has, I think, in a really interesting way, is that it's got an advanced scanning suite on board for finding targets early. That makes it great when you're on an offensive situation, but even when you're on the offense, you want to look out for situations that could cause you problems. So it also is going to help you in avoiding threats. And in this ship that is going to lack durability, being able to avoid threats is going to probably be the most important thing that you can do. So what I see here is maybe a little bit of a potential for this ship to act as a semi-scout, and I think that's maybe where the border patrol of this comes in. So all of a sudden you're talking about a ship that has a large offensive capability through the torpedoes, but it also has the ability to act as a semi-scout, utilizing its advanced scanning suite to then relay information to others without actually being seen. So I think for those of you that have interest in a scout that has a large payload capacity, then yes, I think this Eclipse is an interesting option for you. I think for the vast majority of people, I don't think this is going to be the ship you really want it to be. I think it's priced very high. I think it's going to be very limited in its role. I've heard some people say exploration. I don't know why. The scanning suite maybe, but it's not necessarily that type of suite. So I think really, if you're focused on military, if you like the idea of a stealth bomber, then yes, this is the ship for you. If you want a ship that's capable of sticking around in a fight for an extended period of time, this is not that ship. If you want a ship that has cargo ability or multi-role function, this isn't that ship. Overall, I think the price is probably a little bit high for what we get. That being said, it is labeled as super secret military technology that's now available to civilians. So I think they're just kind of taking the courtesy of bumping up the price based on the secrecy of it, the fanciness of it, and the stealth. And then you also have the combat tax that goes along with it. So, I honestly, for me, I think the ship is a pass. I think it's a really cool design. I like the look of it. I wouldn't mind earning one in the game. But for me, I see better value in other ships. For example, the Harbinger, I think in a very similar price range at $285 as compared to $275. I think it brings a similar amount of firepower plus a turret plus the long range ability, and it just has a lot more firepower on board. So if the stealth piece is what you're really focused on, then I would say go for that. If you don't care as much about the stealth piece and have aspirations elsewhere, then that's where I would focus your efforts. So if you guys have questions on the ship, please let me know. But like I said, we're going to be covering the Q&A here pretty soon, so stay tuned for that, and I'll make any revisions to my suggestion at that point. So like I said, questions in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a great day. Take care.